you're looking at the weaknesses and then you're trying to turn that into training points.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing that MAYEIN did.
Hey.
That really helped. So
they say when you know the sound that will come out of your trumpet, blowing.
So at some point.
Hello and welcome to Impact Bureau, a unique podcast brought to you by MAYEIN organization. Impact Bureau is designed for NGO leaders, executives, founders, members, and trustees. Think of us on Impact Bureau as your unincorporated trustees who give you real advice that you wish your real board coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Okay, so what are we talking about today?
So today we're going to be talking about a very important topic. Everybody who runs an NGO will find this useful. We're talking about volunteer management.
Wow.
Yes. I said in one of the previous episodes that I started with volunteers.
That's even especially because the funding is not usually there when founders are starting.
Exactly.
Need to leverage.
Exactly. And even when you do have funding, the nature of a non-profit is such that you're always going to be leveraging assets out there. Community assets, and community assets involve human assets as well. So volunteers are always a part of communities. They're always a part of, the assets that you will need to leverage to get your work done and achieve the outcomes that you're targeting. So you can't run away from it.
And I also remember starting out as a volunteer, really.
That's true.
So it's been a lot of experience gathering, skills gathering, along the line. And so when I see volunteers also coming into the NGO space, it's something that brings back memories and it also pushes me to do more in terms of investing in them and helping them, also harness their skills.
True. I remember even I also was once a volunteer. I started volunteering before graduating. So I was in university and when we would have all those academic strike, actions, ASU strike, I would spend the period volunteering. So volunteering also was a way that I got into, the development space. I started familiarizing myself with what's really up, what is all these things. That time was SDGs. I remember it was Millennium Development Goals.
Okay, not
so it wasn't SDGs then. But still I too have had that was a very influential part of my journey, volunteering. So it's a useful topic. So that's what we're going to be delving into today. For us, the purpose is of this discussion is to you, the NGO leader, executive, to be able to help you have a set of principles and guidelines that you factor in when you're designing your volunteer management processes. So that's what we're going to be focusing this discussion, our chats, on. So it's going to be fun.
Stay tuned. Okay, so speaking about these principles, what are some of the principles that we should even be looking at, dishing out from the experiences that we're going to be sharing today?
So after running my organization for 12 years now, I think for me...
And I keep saying 12 years, don't be busy.
It's not at all. And knowing how pivotal volunteers have been in the journey, I have been able to crystallize these principles along 4 themes /4 domains. A critical aspect of your volunteer process, management process, will be the recruitment of the volunteers. There has to be an entire process around that. And when we talk about volunteer management, we're simply referring to those processes that your organization, follows step by step in, the recruitment of these people, the engagement of these people, the empowerment of these people, and the retention of these people. So that's what these 4 sort of classifications, I put the process under. You're going to have, activities around recruitment to make sure that it's the right set of people who come in, and you spell out very clearly the expectations. They know what they're going to find themselves doing. You're also going to need to have processes around engaging them, processes around empowering them, and finally retaining these group of people who are critical as a support base for your organization. So we'll be talking along, those are the principles. Along those 4 sort of categories, we'll be distilling principles.
I see.
So, you said you started as a volunteer and you've worked for so long now in the NGO space. Let's go back to that your beginning point as a volunteer. What was it like for you? What was your experience generally? And,
So at first, just like a majority of, people out there, I just used to hear that NGOs help people. That's one of the things I would always hear. And then some people also say NGOs have money. If you can get away into an NGO, you know, it's shop, that kind of thing. So I just walked into MAYEIN that year, and I just wanted to know what exactly NGO is about and what does MAYEIN do. And I had the privilege of meeting Mrs. Osai, and she spoke a lot of English that day, you know, telling me about what the organization was about and all of that. Frankly, I could not remember everything, but okay. So by the time I was leaving, you know, MAYEIN at that time for my National Youth Service Corps, I felt like I'd already built a lot of skills.
Wait, did you start? Did you come to MAYEIN to volunteer before NYSC?
Yes. Immediately after I finished from school.
Oh yes, I remember. I remember. You even did one major project. Yes.
And then, you know, while I was at the orientation camp, there was this SDGs group. So the conversation, I was able to understand it better, and everybody just felt like at some point I had to start, you know, giving presentations about the SDGs while I was in camp and that kind of thing. And then even while I was serving my 1 year service year, I was still the coordinator of the SDGs group.
Oh, you Niger?
Taraba.
Yeah.
In a short while, the ZI and the LGI already knew me. So I had the opportunity to start representing, you know, at events and all of that. So these were some of the skills that I picked from MAYEIN, and then much later I was reinvited into MAYEIN as a staff. And so it's been a journey, and I've seen other people like that, other young people that have come in, you know, into the development space as volunteers, and then they grew from there. Everybody's story will not be the same, but the thing is, for me, what stood out for me, you know, the looking at the principles that we've highlighted at the beginning of this conversation, the recruitment process was clear. You know, I knew MAYEIN already told me what I was expected to do, the kind of person I was supposed to become in working with the target audience, in working with other stakeholders that will come into the organization, the kind of opportunities that were available for me and to me, and all of that. So I think the bulk of the work lies in, you know, what the organization, you know, focuses on as principles to engage anybody, including volunteers. Because if not, people can come to shape your organization for you.
Yeah. I mean, so from everything you've said, really, you've touched on, I believe, apart from maybe the last one, which is retention. But even then, because you will be willing to be retained in a place where, you know, these earlier principles are already at work. So really, it's all the 4 elements. I feel that your story actually even illustrates exactly. So we'll then walk, you know, through all of these principles one by one, and I think I'll be referencing your story a lot because, like I said, it's a very good illustration of the essentials for any NGO leader. And don't forget, because of how critical volunteers are as a support base, as a springboard, most times your project takes off with volunteers. Most times the scale or scope of your project is going to hang on, you know, the shoulders of several volunteers. So even if you do have permanent staff, you will at different points in time in the life of your organization rely on volunteers. So it's critical that you factor in the, you know, these important elements in dealing or managing them.
I agree.
Okay, so let's start with from that first part. Remember you shared your story that you started this journey as a volunteer. And you stayed long in, you know, the development space. So I assume it was a positive experience. But, you know, that journey from starting as a volunteer all the way, what were the highlights? What stood out, you know, for you that kept you there, that, you know, we can use to distill lessons in this conversation from?
So first of all, like I mentioned earlier, there was a clarity on what was expected of me, and then I was able to bargain. I would say that because I asked questions that first day when I met my boss. I asked her questions. She answered me. She set her expectations. I also discussed the expectations that I think I would be able to meet effortlessly, and the ones where I'm going to be needing help, and you know, so that made it easy for me in a way to be able to move along the line. Let me just put it that way. Also, the opportunity for growth. You know that when something affects you personally, when you can look back and say, oh, 6 months ago, I did not have this kind of skills, or I can't do some of these things that I can do now. For me, or for majority of people, any right thinking person want to continue on that path, because you can see how you're growing personally to the extent where even my family members would note one or two things that I'm doing differently, and from the way that maybe I used to do things. So for me, that was a reward. That was a reward mainly. And then I also talked about working with the beneficiaries themselves. There is also the element of satisfaction. Let me put it that way. That brought. Because just the way I was seeing improvement in my own personal life was the way I could see improvement in the lives of the people that we were also impacting. So it just shows me that there is something going on here, that I can sit with. Then the opportunity to also give a voice, lend a voice, because there were times when I too would think about maybe an idea and then I would share, and it will be welcomed or fine-tuned. So it means that I was also contributing, So all of those experiences for me were the reasons why I stayed.
Interesting. So, I mean, your story basically even captures all the different elements or components of the volunteer management process, starting from the recruitment, where you talked about clear communication. You knew very clearly what the organization stood for, its objectives, and the aspects that interested you. You were, you found opportunities to grow within that organization, which speaks about empowerment. For you to have been added as a voice, to be able to contribute, that there must have been, forms of engagement. And finally, you stayed long, so you were retained on the premises of all these other things. So it's a good way to, I think this is a great story. I will be referencing it a lot. So let me, let me start now with the first prong of this whole pyramid, which is the recruitment, bringing the volunteers in. I think that we need to highlight for NGO leaders, what are the important things to really pay attention to. Yeah, so I mean, from your experience, also what would you call those important?
So first of all, what's the organization about? That should be communicated clearly to the volunteer. What does the organization? What are the targets of the organization, and how does that volunteer come in, to do their whole bid? So this is the area where you're letting them understand exactly what they are coming to do, so they know their expectations from the beginning, basically. If I know that I can't deliver on this expectation, then I can opt out. If I can know that I can deliver, or like I earlier mentioned, in my own case, I looked at the ones I know that effortlessly I will do these things. And then I looked at the ones that I know that I cannot do. So what sort of training, leadership, opportunities for growth exists for me, and you were also able to communicate that to me. So the moment I could understand that for me, so it's a detailed, how will I call it now, understanding of the organization itself, the mission of the organization, the target of the organization, the expectation of the volunteer. That I think those things should be clearly communicated.
I mean, definitely, those are obviously a must. Let me just add that, I mean, you said earlier at some point that there was a perception in your mind when you approached this organization. So sometimes people are coming with existing
bias and
beliefs, and they may or may not be true. So many people already have an impression about NGOs from everything you've said. People believe that, hey, these people have money. People believe that there's a donor somewhere that's bankrolling this outfit, So, and sometimes people just believe that you're all about charitable deeds. Maybe you're just into research, but they are expecting you to be going around the streets distributing food items or, the relief items. And maybe that's not the nature of your own non-profit. So it's important to clarify any of, to make it clear who you really are about us, as they say, make it very clear. Also, there was a point where you talked about unpaid and paid volunteerism. I think that's something to really, and I want to stress this, because don't forget that you're existing within a context. In Nigeria, there's a high unemployment rate. In Nigeria, a lot of young people in recent times have been hearing information about go and volunteer as an opportunity to build workplace skills, to gain an advantage when it's time to join the workplace. So people are coming also with intentions. They want something out of this experience. Sometimes some people they're expecting you to pay them. Maybe they've heard about a friend who had a paid volunteering experience. And your own assumption is that from the very word volunteer, they should know that it is unpaid.
Yeah.
So please clarify.
Yes.
Do we provide stipends? Do we give allowances? Or is it completely unpaid? Make that clear from the onset, so that you're not creating a scandal for your organization. Also, this issue of opportunities to build skills. Will they work on projects? What projects will they work on? Make that very clear, because like I said, many of these young people walking into the place want to have an opportunity to build their skills. So that's an essential.
Yes.
So let's move on now to the second, aspect of the whole volunteer management process. Let's talk about empowerment. I love how you put it, that to be able to look at myself 6 months down the line and compare that to the version of myself when I started volunteering, and to say, I now know this set of things, or I can do these things, and I couldn't do them before. That was such a point of satisfaction for you, and it was an incentive to stay in that volunteering experience. So I want to see how, leaning on that, organizations can be more intentional about empowering volunteers. I want to know, what are your general reflections? How should they go about it? What works? What doesn't work?
Okay, so first of all, whether it's a volunteer or not, organizations should always look out for ways to help the persons in their organization to grow. And if you're really watchful, you would, in no time, you start seeing the strength and the weaknesses, of these people. So you can lean more in the area of their weaknesses and try to help them out. Capacity building is very, very important. So there should be a routine of, trainings, that, can be suggested to this person. So it can be individual trainings that they take on a platform. It can be a day where you invite persons to come in, but just have, that timetable, that roster, where, again, from time to time, you're looking at the weaknesses and then you're trying to turn that into training points. Yeah. Because that's one thing that MAYEIN did.
Hey.
That really helped. So
they say when you know the sound that will come out of your trumpet, blowing.
So at some point, we didn't used to have capacity building trainings. We would literally go out to attend events, but at some point we dedicated Fridays to capacity development.
So from that, you talked about helping them identify strengths and weaknesses. Yes. And one of the things we do at MAYEIN, what we do for staff in terms of appraisals, we also expect supervisors or volunteers to do for volunteers. You see, because when you do regular and routine appraisals, you're helping the individual, you're affirming the individual in the areas of their strengths, and you're helping them identify opportunities for growth in the areas of their weaknesses. Yes. So that's a pointer. So that tells the volunteer, this is the specific area you must work on. So that's a starting point when we talk about things like empowerment. Yeah. Another thing is, I understand you're working on lean resources, you are bootstrapping. So it's not until you get that huge money to send all of them for, executive short courses in LBS that you are going to do capacity building. There are many small ways that you can achieve big victories. Yeah. We started by simply having a schedule and identifying different work areas and different knowledge areas that were important for staff, and said we would by ourselves train. So we would rotate it. So you would give one particular individual a topic and say, go and train yourself, expose yourself to available content, knowledge, information in this area, and come and retrain us. So that cascading principle, the person would learn and come and step it down to the rest of us, was the system we introduced. And we would sometimes put the responsibility on a volunteer. So it doesn't matter that you're not yet, you've not graduated, or even if you've graduated, you're not there formally employed, you still have the same responsibility, because it's a new topic for anybody, either ways, right? Yeah. So we would do those things, and then that volunteer would come and train all of us, or just by even sitting in the room, the training where the formal staff is training us on and workshopping us around a topic, help these volunteers to also grow their skills. And third thing that we do at MAYEIN is, we give you a project or an aspect of a project to be responsible for, because true learning comes from doing. Yeah. When you have a responsibility that deliverable is on you, if you lack a skill, as she said in her earlier, response, that you would have letters to draft and ordinary things like page setting. She didn't know, but because of that response, no, you won't go and say, I've done the best I can, give my superior. No, you will do it. That information is available somewhere. Go and unlock it, practice it, achieve it, do it. So in the process, you gain the skill. So we make sure that volunteers have tasks that are theirs. Not that you're just waiting for, go this way, go that way. No, you are assigned this deliverable. It is yours. You will think about it. You will come up with a strategy that you think will work. You will report that strategy to your supervisor. The person will say, okay, try it, you know, maybe adjust it here or there. And then you will go and implement it. You will come back with the results. So those things grow people fast. Grow people fast. And you will come and report. You'll be accountable for it. So in a meeting, you would report on its success or its failures, the challenges, and then you will get the feedback. So those steps help to build the capacities of our volunteers.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, we've talked a lot about recruitment. We've talked quite a bit about empowerment. Let's talk about engagement. And sometimes I think we even still have gaps in our engagement, because when I think about the number of volunteers that we've had and even still have, and a lot of people forget, just because you disengage doesn't mean you stop engaging. Yes, you know, so I think that it's something we need to really dwell on for NGO leaders out there. What are the good strategies for engaging your volunteers, especially if you have, like us, multiple work locations or separate work teams? You know, one project is in a different part of town and there's a set of volunteers there. How do you make sure there's harmony, number one? How do you make sure that, you know, everybody is operating under a sort of similar blueprint? There's a vision document that everybody is guided by, including volunteers. And also this issue of turnover. You know, volunteers are often cyclical. They are usually very short-lived in the lifespan of an organization. So they leave and new people come in. So what are good strategies to make sure that engagement is effective when dealing with volunteers?
So first of all, you know, as a standard practice in MAYEIN, everything we do stems from the strategy document. So whether it's a staff or a volunteer that is leaving, your leaving doesn't mean that we're at a standstill. And then the meetings, the strategy and action planning meetings that we would always have, regardless of what part of town you're in, it still loops everybody into thinking about that singular vision that we're working towards per time. So regardless of where you are, we can engage you because our work plans flow from the strategy documents. So if you have an aspect of work, like you mentioned earlier, that has been assigned to you, you know that you're working on that vis-a-vis whatever it is that the organization is focusing on at time. So regardless of where you are, that engagement still flows in terms of deliverables for everybody. So that is one. We also have channels that we use, you know. The world is now digital, so something as simple as a WhatsApp, you know, can also still loop people in together on projects or on things that they just need to jump on like immediately. So we also use channels. Sometimes we have a lot of groups, like WhatsApp groups that we also use, apart from maybe meetings that we have. So those are some of the basic things that readily comes to my mind right now. A lot of them too, I think we've said it under empowerment and but is there any other thing that you feel maybe
I mean, no, I think you've struck gold on a couple of things, like central meetings. It's important that it doesn't matter if your systems are decentralized, you should always have centralized meetings. And one of the things we try to do is, you know, some organizations would say only the department heads or unit heads should attend, should join management meetings. We always have a central meeting where everybody will join and will be privy to the conversation, to the, so the culture that is being formed, the tone, you know, everything you can, I mean, so even the leaders, the top leaders of it will know you. However new you are expected to contribute. So those things really help. And then there's no way that you're working in silos where it's only your team's project you're aware of. You're aware of everything. So it's big picture thinking. We try to achieve that through central meetings. You also talked about various channels. I know that we leverage, and you can too, leverage multiple channels. Use technology. It's your friend. In times like this, use, you know, WhatsApp groups. Different. There are many opportunities to have teams, you know, leverage technology to submit work, to work asynchronously. So sometimes it's not until you are all sitting together in one place. You give them a document, go and work on it, send it back, you know, so everybody can be working simultaneously on the same document. We do that a lot via cloud, you know, systems, cloud computing. So we do that a lot. And that way, you know, we're constantly hearing from them. And invite them to participate. So most times the impression is he's a volunteer, it doesn't have anything to offer. No. From the get-go, make it clear that the best ideas are only formed from, you know, everybody's input. So if there are 10 of us in the room, I want to hear 10 perspectives. My philosophy, yes, thank you. If you can even bring the invisible perspective of it. So that's where we function here. Not that it's only the only people to think are the people who wear the label department lead. No, you are doing yourself a disservice. So those volunteers from day one, as they step in. In fact, when we have high school students come for internships, they're often shocked because we'd love to hear their perspectives. Oh, what do you think? That question, as mundane as it is a very powerful. I have used it in my leadership style. It changes the game. What do you think? It's you know, it's a culture shock for many young people, but after they get over the initial reservation and the initial you know, sense of maybe I'm inadequate, they begin to have a sense of self-acceptance. Then when you validate their ideas, affirm that so they gain the confidence and they bring more of those ideas. Some of our best ideas. When we celebrated International Youth Day, it came from one of our new volunteers who at first was timid, you know, but when we opened up the floor, I said, what are your thoughts? Because we old goons, we don't even know what is best. And they gave us fantastic ideas. So that's the brilliance. Please always ask them, what are your thoughts? What do you think? What do you think? And give them opportunities, even if they don't do it verbally, openly, give them opportunities to submit a document to you. So yes, those things help in volunteer engagement. So finally, let's talk about retention. You know, we've walked through the steps from recruiting them. We've tried to highlight good practices / best practices. So I hope you took notes. Now let's talk about retention. What will make a volunteer stay as long as, and retention sometimes means that they transit from being a volunteer to becoming permanent staff. Sometimes it might mean that they go and they come back. Every time that they're doing holidays, they always want to do it with you. Or every time that they're in the country, they always want to come back to your organization.
Or they even refer your organization, even if they can't
Thank you. Exactly. For you, wherever they are. Or that even if they're based in another place, they're providing technical know-how. Sometimes it's a volunteer who helps us develop a tool, yes, or improve our website. So they've gone, they are pursuing their lives, but they are still interested in you. You know, so these are like, I like how, you know, you've expanded the meaning of retention. It's not until somebody is physically in your place. So what are the best things to introduce to make sure that people, even when they leave, they don't leave?
It's all of these things that we've discussed that shapes the experience, because as humans, the experience you get from interacting with people or situations, it's a lot at the end of the day. So the experience, make sure that the experience that volunteers take away from your organization is memorable, positively, you know, because that's the only thing that can speak for you. So wherever your volunteers are, they can be in a meeting sometimes, listening to someone, and then their mind comes to you that if your organization is linked with this person, maybe it will create an opportunity for funding, maybe it will create an opportunity for one thing or the other. So for me, the experience really matters.
I mean, I feel like that's the sum of it all. Because, you know, people stay in a place that blesses them. And that's the principle that I've always even incorporated, however small. If I see that I can achieve my progress in a place, I stay there. You know, and it's from, there are many ways that a leader can signal that, beyond the salary. You know, there's a culture there that rewards you, that celebrates you, recognizes you. So all those things shape the positive experience you've talked about. Do you reward them well? In financial ways, in other ways? Do you affirm them? Do you give credit, you know, to their contributions? Do you give them recognition at the end of the year? You know, you celebrate volunteer of the year, you give them a letter, you write a recommendation for them when they need you to provide a recommendation, and that's key, because
and even let them know from the get-go that
this is one of the options. Yes, this is one of the ways we will always support your growth. So those things are a signal to the person that there's blessing for me here. And if I have had a positive experience of a place, it's just like even a business, a supermarket, a product. I will be a voice. I will constantly preach. I will be an evangelist of that thing. I would promote it anywhere. We've had grant opportunities come to us because somebody spoke about us in a room where we weren't there physically. That's the power of volunteers. It's like even your university. You know how when you, we call it an alumni economy. If your alumni hated their life as even as they just hated their time in school, they won't look back. They won't think about giving back. They've gone. What's in law, they've cancelled. But when they have positive memories of that institution, it builds them. They can trace their progress, their advancement to that path. They will always, you know, want to give a portion. You know, but when they've had that positive experience, it's the determining, you know, factor in their decisions ultimately. And let me just end by saying, when it's time for them to leave, disengage formally. It's very important. You engage them formally with a letter, right? Or a document. Disengage formally. Give them a letter in the records. Have it in your file. Give them a copy. Thanking them for the time of their contributions, their volunteering, you know, in your organization on whatever project. Thanking them for their actual, you know, whatever it is you feel that they brought in. Yes, because that letter, they can show it somewhere else as proof that they've been, you know, in the workplace formally before. They've done, you know, they've gained a certain experience, whatever. Also, for your records, if anybody goes outside claiming to be your representative and your records show that no, we disengage them so time, you will not be liable. Yes. So for, you know, neat, tidy record keeping, disengage formally. Please, very critical.
Important. Yeah, for MAYEIN, I know that one other thing that we include in that letter is we remind them that we have an open door policy, so they can always come back. So it shows them that yes, you're living at this particular time, but
your family.
Family.
We've built a family, you know. So I mean, there's formalities, but there's relationship,
of course.
You know. So please try to walk the fine line between both.
Let's try to balance.
And if you create a positive experience, like Muturai has said, people will not forget you. People will speak about you.
Definitely.
So there you have it. We've had a very rich, you know, discussion, myself and Mo, on your volunteer management process, and I think that we've been able to share with you some of the guidelines and things that you can incorporate in running or managing your volunteers going forward. Anything?
Not really. I mean, we've touched on a lot of points, so you go back to the drawing board and see what areas do you need to incorporate some of the things that we've highlighted today. And if you're already doing some of these things, speed up your pace.
Yes, speed up your pace. So don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Enjoy your week.
Bye.